Hey everyone, Kevin here. Something that I was exposed to when I left education and also have had to help others doing so understand are non-compete clauses and contracts, which are basically you agreeing not to work for another company in the same industry for a set period of time. Most transitioning teachers simply sign these things without really taking the time to understand what they're consenting to, and they end up in bad situations after leaving a company and finding themselves stuck or confused because of it. Which is why I specifically wanted to talk today about the question of should non compete clauses even exist in business contracts in the first place? As I tend to do, I posted this question on LinkedIn a while back, and the vast majority of respondents said that they shouldn't exist and frankly make no sense, a notion I wholeheartedly agree with. First off, they're essentially impossible to enforce. I mean, how is a company you aren't working for anymore going to continue holding actual power over you when you don't work for them? It would be like you leaving Japan to live in the United States, but Japan mandates that you still follow Japanese laws for another 12 months until the contract expires, even though you no longer live in that country. It doesn't make much sense. So, how, pray tell, would that be enforced? Answer: it can't be. Unless you were selling trade secrets and were violating a non disclosure agreement, there isn't anything that your old company can really do. I mean, what are they going to do? Call the police? What would they do about it even if they did? Think about it. With the rise of remote work, you can be employed by a company hundreds or even thousands of miles away. So you're no longer just limiting former employees from working in local businesses that can conflict with yours, but literally preventing them from being employed by any company anywhere. How can a company keep tabs on all former employees like that? And even if they could, do you know how much that would cost? This all leads to the conclusion that non disclosure agreements are scare tactics used to keep former employees out of work because they feel threatened that you would bring your skills to a competitor. Which brings up the most obvious point: non-compete clauses stifle business and reduces competition by essentially forcing ex-workers to find career opportunities in different professions that they aren't familiar with, thus forcing them to start over rather than using the skills and knowledge they built up during their time in that field. This is mainly why here in California, we recently banned non-compete clauses in business contracts for companies with more than 15 people. Pretty sure I mentioned that in another video now that I think about it. But the important thing to add to it is that these clauses are essentially punishment from a former employer, and is why there has generally been political backlash against them in recent years. I remember actually receiving a letter from my previous employer after the law was passed here, saying that any non compete type agreement I may or may not have signed with them was now null and void in compliance with that new law. But in practice, no one followed non compete clauses anyway, because again, they're unenforceable. All most people would do is mark no in the box on a new application asking if we have a new non compete agreement with our previous employer, and I have never heard of any company verifying if you do or not anyway. Why? Well, no one cares. Even if you do live in a place where non compete agreements are still legal, don't worry about them being around much longer because we have, honestly, woken up as a society to how inherently absurd they are and how much they hurt people's livelihoods and businesses as a whole. So, should non compete clauses exist? Hell no. They stifle the free market and should no longer have a place in modern society. But please pay attention to them if you see anything like that in a contract that you're about to sign, because you should then take the time to ask the company what purpose they serve. Often they won't be able to answer, and that's a sign that you should tell them that you will not sign that part of the contract. That, or you should just ignore them like everyone else does anyway. So, I mean, there's that too. Anyway, though, for those new to the business world, you need to be aware of these clauses and what they can potentially represent because you need to understand them before and after employment with any company. Nonetheless, these clauses are starting to be done away with here and there, and I say for the better. In the meantime, educate yourself about them and always read everything before signing, which is pretty good advice just in general. But that's it for today. If you would like some further information on this, please don't hesitate to reach out. As I say, I'm always here to help. See you next time.